Hey guys, LilyPie101 here. Some of you have probably already seen me around, but maybe some of you haven't. But I'm a full-time content creator and Twitch partner. I have about 6,000 hours in DBD, primarily a Survivor main, although I play killer on and off stream to grind achievements, archives, or adepts, and I'm also a fog whisperer, which I know most people cringe at, but I like to think I'm still the same before and after becoming one. Now, I'm making this video today because I've noticed my experience with DBD going downhill, which is kind of unusual for me. I haven't really faced much burnout after thousands of hours of playing, and I'm usually still excited to play, just not as much lately. And I don't usually make these types of videos, but I would typically edit matches down from my stream, and I can't even do that most recently because content for Survivor is incredibly stale at the moment. And about a week ago, I made a Twitter thread, which I'll link below in the description, that kind of broadly explains the frustrations that I have with the current state of the game, especially as Survivor. Overall, I like the direction the DBD is going, but it's far too easy to oppress as killer at the moment. What it really boils down to is most killers want to win, which is very fair. But because there's currently no true cap to how oppressive a killer can be, taking the easy route is what most killer players are going to do, even if it means playing cheap or making the other side miserable in the process, which is a huge issue for Survivor players. So of course, killer players are going to play the easiest way possible. Gamers are going to game. But it's the good faith argument that makes it so hard. Sure, we could say, go next or find your own fun, but when most are choosing to play that way, there really is no escaping from it. This isn't to say there aren't Survivor issues either, but this is a video based on Survivor and one where the issue is a little bit more pressing in my opinion. I've also noticed people complaining about Survivors running meta perks like reassurance, DS, off the record, etc. But most of these only work if you actually let them, plus some of them get disabled in-game, like DS, like off the record. But it's frustrating when you can't really do anything and you get shoehorned into a build that might be useless, considering how the killer plays. Some people could easily argue the same thing for killer, but if I'm running a meme build and I notice the survivors start, really slamming me, I could easily make up for it by camping, by tunneling. But if I choose not to do that, the worst case scenario is like I get a couple of hooks and I get 4 outed. Like, that's the worst case scenario. But I still make a decent amount of BP and the survivors still got to play and get a decent amount as well. A pretty well-rounded game. But overall, if I choose to make up for my lack of skill by camping and tunneling, the survivors, I could make it so they just don't get to play, and I'll still make similar, if not less BP. But from my experience, most killer players don't wait until a game goes bad. They will camp, tunnel, use force slows, etc. off rip because there's just no cap. And MMR will reward that, but I will get punished because I died to it. I think it's a very flawed and a very lopsided system, if I'm being honest. And keep in mind, you can play how you want, but the mentality of wanting to only win with little to no resistance is pretty skewed, and it rewards very poor skill, and it only hinders you from getting better. And to think that you'll get the 4K every single time is silly. You're basically saying that nobody could just ever possibly be better than you. But the worst of all that's to come out of this has been seeing people play less, stop playing altogether, or play killer in the exact same way to take out their frustrations instead of learning, thus repeating a cycle. It just feels pretty awful to see when you're very passionate about something like DBD. Regardless, the culprit isn't one thing, it's many. I heavily believe skill-based matchmaking started it, but 6.1 only worsened it. And let me preface, I may primarily play Survivor, but that's because my streaming audience is built around playing Survivor. Most of my audience is Survivor mains, and as a full-time content creator, it's not something that you just easily switch over from. But I've been playing since late 2019, so like I said before, I do have a lot of killer experience, and I happen to be very well versed in it. So whenever I play killer, people are typically surprised, like from when I played on DBD's official Twitch channel as Spirit for Into the Fog, which I'll also link down below in the description. But here's some things that I think that would help change the flow of DBD at the moment. I'm gonna start with some on a little bit of the smaller scale, some on a larger scale, and some of these may take a while or even years to implement, I don't know, but these are definitely things that I think would help in the grand scheme. Number 1 is hiding the prestige level. So previously, they hid ranks for this exact reason so that people didn't feel like they were getting unfairly matched up and whatnot. They need to do this with prestige level, because ever since becoming P100 with my Claudette, my main, I have definitely experienced a lot more camping, tunneling, slugging, Moris, BM, you name it, just for playing P100 Claudette. Hell, I could even last second swap, and I've been told by killers that it's a toxic P100 switch. I don't understand this, but P100, all it means is that somebody is invested in 100 million BP into one specific character. Number 2, make it so that killers cannot use their powers, aka their M2 at the hook. For example, artists cannot place up her crows at the hook. Meanwhile, Trapper, Hag actually can. I think this should be the same across the board. I think this is also going to be very crucial, especially since they were testing the auto Mori thing. Just for example, imagine an insidious camping Bubba with eerie flesh. The game would be over, and that's just it. Now, the majority of players in Dead by Daylight play solo queue. That would be absolutely miserable considering there's no grace period and there would not be enough time to get up. The game is just done. Number 3, change Dead Hard to be unaffected by endurance snacking so that it can be used with BT, off the record, adrenaline, and not necessarily countered by killer powers such as Legion's Frenzy or Slinger's Spear. I just know this one is going to be super controversial, but I just want to preface, I don't actually use Dead Hard myself, but I do encounter a lot of gamers that have used it and have been getting really good at it. Kinda sucks having your perk countered just because you get hit through BT, or you can't pair it with off the record or adrenaline, or you happen to face a Legion or a Slinger, etc. Number 4 would be cycling scorch hooks. Obviously, the most popular scorch hook is pain res, but if a killer decides to camp, they can get value just by forcing hook trades again and again and again. However, if they were to cycle, it'd be an incentive to not camp, and it would fix an issue that scorch hooks typically have anyways, which is spawning cluttered or on one side of the map. Number 5, possibly a basement rework. I know a lot of people have talked about a second staircase for basement, but in addition to that, a lot of people automatically assume GG as soon as a survivor gets down over basement or near basement, which is pretty bad. That and some killers can still body block the top of basement, on some maps. Number 6, make slowdowns not stack. Previously, I did do a video on this, but I'm not sure how well it holds up today. But 90 seconds of Gen's base and then having no cap for slowdowns is pretty brutal, and this is the part that really needs to be looked at because with no cap, people are going to stack as many slowdowns as they feel necessary. Number 7, maybe change the skill-based matchmaking criteria. Kills aren't necessarily skilled just because they get 4 kills, and survivors aren't necessarily skilled just because they escape via exit gate. I honestly feel like the emblem system promoted more well-rounded games, but skill-based matchmaking makes people sweat preemptively on both sides just because, which really shouldn't be the main focus of DBD. It was fine when it was casual, and it should have been fine. Number 8 would be a lot, but undo 6.1. My main issue was that there were way too many killer buffs that were introduced without gradual testing, but also the 40 perk rework as well. Some of the key things that I found really bad were, number 1, Bloodlust being buffed. Maps are already steadily being reworked to get rid of infinites and whatnot, and I don't really feel like Bloodlust is needed that much anymore, and if Bloodlust does stay in the game, tier 1 max. Any further and you're only punishing survivors for looping well and rewarding the killer for playing poorly and making them think that they have a good chance at winning chases when it's not even from their own skill. Killer's cooldown on successful M1s being sped up by 10% would have been okay, but it basically gives a killer 2 free stacks of Stabiffle, making max stacks technically 10, which is pretty rough. They should have adjusted Stabiffle in the process with this. Same thing with the killers receiving a 10% speed towards kicking gens, pallets, walls, but no adjustments to brutal strength or anything else that affects kicking times. Also, survivors being given a 10% movement speed penalty after being hit by M1s is also pretty rough when you factor in the cooldown that I initially talked about. Also, pretty much all of the 40 perks that were reworked for both sides had major issues to me, and my biggest gripe is that meta did it and still doesn't necessarily mean bad. A few examples for this on Killer would have been removing the BP bonus for barbecue and chili, which incentivized people to spread out their hooks more for BP. Corrupt didn't need to be changed necessarily. It was very strong for setup killers like Trapper and Hag, and getting it down and having it go away, just unnecessary. Also, Ruin being even further nerfed, not only in terms of regression, but immediately going away after one person dies. It was pretty fair, and you actually had to do your part by chasing survivors away from gens. And then for Survivor, Iron Will didn't necessarily need a nerf, as Shattered Spirit was nerfed not too long ago, but then they just suddenly bought it back. And in addition to that, tracking wasn't that hard as killer, to be fair. I mean Spirit, and with or without players having Iron Will, I could still pretty accurately phase. Also, Botany did need the penalty added for medkits when the core issue was medkits themselves. DS receiving further nerfs after having conspicuous actions added only made tunneling easier, to the point where somehow head-on is more effective as an anti-tunnel perk because the stun time is simply longer in comparison. There's more that I could talk about, but I'll just continue on with my regular list. Number 9, make BT/off the record not one and the same. I know this was previously removed so that endurance wouldn't stack and make swifts or coordinated players strong, but survivors losing the collision for instances like this would be much better so that they can't body block and they aren't robbed of perk value. Number 10, make reassurance 12 meters minimum, remove the hook instance limitation, and instead make it like the PTB version where it goes on a 40-second cooldown with multiple usages. And if somebody wants to go next and deny the reassurance, they can. Maybe even base kit to punish campers further, which I don't think anybody can really get mad at it because it only works if you let it. Camping with 90 seconds gens base is basically ensuring somebody, even if you continually hook trade, just don't get to play the game. It's not as simple as just do gens, go next anymore. Number 11, revert DS and make it base kit possibly, the same way as BT. But realistically, it shouldn't be an issue considering conspicuous actions exist. Again, if you do anything except for getting tunneled, it just goes away. Again, this only works if you actually let it. Number 12, implement base kit unbreakable as experimented with to negate slugging for the 4K and improve the overall slugging experience. 45 seconds is more than fine, and I think if you can't end a chase within 45 seconds to go pick up a slug, or you just want to leave somebody slugged on the ground for more than 45 seconds, they just don't need to be on the ground. Just that simple. And again, it only works if you let it work. That's basically all I have for the video. It's just something that's been on my mind for quite a while, and like I said, I'll leave the links down below to all the different things that I was talking about in the video. Hopefully I get to make more DBD content in the future on a little bit more of a lighter note, but you guys can follow me on all of my other socials at LilyPie101. You can also catch me streaming 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. CT on Twitch usually, every day except for Monday. And I'm open to new and possibly better ideas. These are just a few that I had floating around. I still love DBD at its core and I still have fun, but I enjoy much more of my time on Killer at the moment, on and off stream. I'm just passionate and I want everyone to be happy, on both sides.
ボディチェックを受けた時にちょっと借りてきたんです。
I got you, Miss Claudette!
こんなものが存在していたとは。